Well, welcome to UCity, the church. People around these parts call me Pastor T, and I am so grateful to be with you here today. This is a church that we are with Jesus on mission to love people and culture. And my hope is, if this is your first, second, or third time, that you feel seen, that you feel known, that you feel accepted, loved, not looked over, but looked upon. And everyone, give it up for first timers, second timers, third timers in this room. Give it up for them. We definitely want to welcome them here. I am especially glad because it is the Christmas season. And this season brings a lot of joy to everyone, but sometimes sorrow, sometimes grief. But it's both the same with God. The gospel is that He is with you, whether you are joyful or grieving. God is with you. That is the gospel. That is the gospel. Something that happens around this time, something that this season is known for, is that it is known for giving. It is known for giving. That's one of the reasons why I love it so much. It gives us an excuse to push ourselves in giving. And I want to know, and I would just want to just know, where did this concept of giving around this time come from? And then maybe I thought, man, maybe it came from the wise men. When Jesus was born, the wise men traveled far and they gave good gifts. But I don't think that's it. Then I thought maybe it is because of Santa. Maybe that's why we give gifts. Now here, for those who know me, I have my beefs with Santa. I won't dive into it, but I do. But as I've done research on where the concept of Santa comes from, I said, hey, this guy may not be that bad. Or this concept of Santa may not be that bad. Did you know there was a Christian priest named Father Nicholas? Sounds familiar? And he became known for distributing food and gifts to the poor. Like, he was good at benevolence. I said, okay, this guy is growing on me. And then I read this. He is also known for rescuing 3 girls from prostitution. This guy, Father Nicholas, is known for rescuing 3 girls from prostitution. What happened is that he would give gold coins to the father of the 3 girls that were in prostitution. And there was one day that the father gained enough coins and was able to pay a dowry to rescue his girls. And this was all done by Father Nicholas. And he was discovered by the father. And St. Nicholas asked the father to keep the gifts a secret. And so the father did, but it became known, and that is why on December the 25th, we celebrate like a saint's day. And it all came from Father Nicholas. He was known for giving to the poor, right? I said, okay, I can maybe get with this, maybe. But that is not the reason why we give either. It's not because of the wise man, and it's not because of Santa. Then what is it? I believe the real reason we give is because God gave. 2 weeks ago, we talked about being generous. And we talked about it a lot in a financial way. We talked about what we could give, how we could give more. But this Sunday, I want to talk about what God gave. what God gave. This is what I want to talk about, is what God gave. God, at his very heart, was a giver. It's like he couldn't help himself. That's actually where the word grace really comes from. It means give. God is gracious and generous. In his very nature, he is a giver. That's why the verse says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Okay, son. He gave his only son. He's a giver. So I want to focus on who, how, and what of this gift. What does it mean that God is a giver? Last week I said that I wanted to flip over tables. I wanted to revolutionize Christmas. Tear it down, build it up, because maybe we have gotten to the point where Christmas does not mean what it should to us anymore. And last week, I took a stance, and I said I talked about maybe this far-fetched idea that we can take Christmas back by repenting. And that we get to really understand what a repentance is, and it's not this damaging word that we yell at people. It is actually changing your mindset. And then John the Baptist teaches us. He taught us last week that repenting is as simple as sharing, simple as caring, and being content with where we are. Well, this morning I want to talk about how do we give more by reflecting on what God gave to us. And so we're going to look in the book of John 1 at the first verse. And it says this: in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And then we skip to verse 11. It says, he came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did not receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, and the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and full of truth. And I want to challenge us today, or actually ask the question, do you give what actually matters? We all have learned this concept of giving, but do you give what actually matters? And then the book of John tells us what actually matters. John speaks of light and darkness. Word became flesh. Like, what is John actually talking about? See, I believe that like every gift reflects the giver, and John is wanting us to see something about the giver. So I want to look at how God gave, and there are three specific ways that God gave. The first one is that he gave his flesh. Everyone, especially those of you who are asleep, pinch yourself. Pinch yourself, pinch your cheeks. That's flesh. That is as simple as that. Why did I have you do that? Because it's very important that you understand the concept of how God came. He came personally. Notice the phrase, the Word became flesh. Theologians actually refer to this doctrine of incarnation. We have had these conversations with people. Some people believe in incarnation, and this is what the theologians, and maybe I believe that it actually came from God becoming human. See, most world religions focus on how human beings can become gods. On how human beings can become God. How they can get from here to there. But the story of Christianity is about a God who leaves there and comes to here. Who leaves there and come to here. He does not just send a voice memo. He becomes one of us by taking human flesh. And this is amazing to me. When God says, I am with you, it does not mean, he didn't just mean in spirit and distant. But he came to us in flesh. But why is John making such a big deal about this? He wants us to understand the significance of this gift. When God wanted the world to know him, he did not send a DM saying, hey girl. He did not send a voice memo. He did not send a professional email attempting to use big words and appear smarter than what he is. I do that. People see right through it. I said, man, I sound smart. And I really don't be sounding smart, so I just gave it up. But God does not send an email. He does not send a sales rep. He does not mail a letter. Yet, he sends himself. God wanted us to know who he really was. I find this concept fascinating. Do you know that in the Bible, Jesus sat and had meals with people just like we have meals with each other? He walked and talked. He had conversations. And people did not know that when they were talking to Jesus, they were talking to God, the creator of the whole universe, the creator of the multiverse, Spider-Man, Thor, and I'm glad Batman is not in there. Sorry, Noah. The creator of the universe that made multiverse, that made the Spider-Man, God, who made the very person you are, who made your flesh. Can you imagine Peter? Can you imagine Matthew or the people that Jesus encountered? That you are actually having a real life, practical conversation with God. That is fascinating to me. Why would a being leave the perfection of heaven? How many of you have been on your dream vacation? Raise your hand. Wherever that is, think a million times better. Think a billion times better. Why would anyone leave that to come and have a conversation with me. A boy that stutters. A boy that Jesus will have to be patient with as I get my words out. Why would he do that? It is because he loves us. He wants to know you personally. And he wants you to be vulnerable with him. Somehow we see the God and Jesus different. God is a tyrant maybe that is far, that sends lightning bolts and says, do better. But that's not who he is. If you understand that he came as Jesus, that helps you understand who he is. 2, God came humbly and he sacrificed. He sacrificed his position and he came humbly. The idea that God would humble himself to take on flesh was unthinkable in that day. And now it's unthinkable in this day. And Jesus has went back to heaven. Imagine if he was with them at the present moment. And it wasn't a PR stunt or anything like that. Jesus, I love this. I said this last week. He came the opposite as power and strength. He came as a baby, vulnerable to the world. People were expecting him to come with a massive army, ready to take over the kingdom, yet he came humbly and he sacrificed. This shows us how we should be. This shows us how we should give. That we should be humble, and if we think we're humble, we're not humble enough. Push yourself. If you think you sacrifice more. Because this is what Jesus did. And I believe because Jesus came this way, people did not recognize him. Nor did they believe him. Do you know that we can be so stuck on what we think we want? We can be so convinced of how things should be that we miss what is right in front of us. Maybe that's you this Christmas season. That you can't be content, that you can't be where you are because you are so convinced that this is not how things should be. And that there is more, that there's better, that like there is high, but that robs you from being in the moment and being grateful for the moment. They did not recognize him. They were looking for Thor. But instead, they got Batman. I would be disappointed too. I have this thing against Batman, sorry. But they were looking for Thor, thunder, lightning, loud armies. But instead, they got a baby who's feeble and vulnerable. The way of Jesus is humility. The way of Jesus is humility. In the world just now and today, we are grasping for power. We are grasping for might. And this also happens in the church. And the church is also used for this. But the church always should reflect its Savior. And that we should be sacrificial, and that we should be humble. This is a giver's heart. I believe that we do this well as a church. We're very generous. We're very sacrificial. But I believe that God has more for us. that he wants us to be more humble, more sacrificial as a church. Okay, thirdly, he gives relationally. He gives relationally. This means that he gave his time and that he gave his intentionality. Maybe this Christmas season you are rushing through all of the things. Maybe your traditions have not been relational. That's what they're for. That we prioritize time to be relational. I would ask you, is it still relational? Or is it still something that you just do? Be intentional about being relational in this season. Through the gift of Jesus' life and death and resurrection, we can now reconcile. We are now reconciled to God. And this is good news, and this brings us great joy. But notice something that is found in the second half of this verse. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. Did you notice that the Word made flesh? Did you notice what it did? See, here's the thing. When God became flesh, he is now with us. He is now relational. He is walking, he is talking, he is having conversations. He is loving, he is hugging. And Jesus always had one speed, and that was the speed of love. Is that a song? They should write it. What I'm saying is that he was never in a hurry. Jesus was never in a hurry to the next thing. He was intentional. He was present. He even was given to the world slowly. He was in Mary's belly for 9 months. This is God. And then he was birthed. Then he was a little baby. And then he had to grow up. Nothing was fast. Jesus was never in a hurry. Do you choose to slow down this Christmas? Do you choose to be present? Do you choose to be intentional? God gave his flesh. He gave humbly. He sacrificed. And God gave himself, his time, his intentionality. Will you do the same this Christmas? Can we recognize that God is with us? And if we know that God is with us, how do you respond to that? Do you just walk past him? Are you too busy for him? Or is he too slow for you? God gave us Jesus by leaving the splendor of heaven, came as human form as Jesus, and he lived with us. And not only did he live with us, then he died for us. This is the big gift that we cannot overlook this Christmas season. My message this morning is really simple. It is a reminder to slow down to be present with God and others, and to give past yourself. And humility and sacrifice and relationally, because he does this for you. I'm going to make up a share challenge on the spot. On the spot. And we're going to do it here. We're going to do it here. So we used just to do this back in the day. A live share challenge. So we do a share challenge because it's shared because we should all do it. It's a challenge because it may be a little difficult, especially when asked on the spot. And so I would ask this question for the person beside you. Is what can you push yourself to give this Christmas season? What can you push yourself to give in this Christmas season? And now, so find the nearest person to you and ask that. What can you give that's past yourself more this Christmas season? What is the challenge for you?